Hello everyone, welcome to THLGK. In the last video, we talked about the abominable approach and how that's a name I give to the religious approach to religion itself. But the video was too long. It was over an hour, so I decided to take 3 segments of it, let's call it that, and make this video. And today we are going to be talking about this 3-part that will finally bring to a conclusion these 3 approaches and how they operate, or I should say how I conceptualize them. So the first part of this video, we'll talk about an example of how these 2 approaches will deal with a question of theological nature related to the sacred text. That question is, who wrote the Torah? It's a very common question that to this day is asked. So I will attempt, and I hope I succeed, to break down how someone using the literalist approach, someone using the scientific approach, and someone using the abominable religious approach would give an answer to that question. The second part of this video, we are going to talk about the evolution of the abominable approach. Because the way I see it, the abominable approach can't be taken a step further. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, I will talk about a possible science safe it's not really an approach. It would be a way of seeing it's hard to define, because the moment we do, you will see we're already failing. So this last part, we'll talk about a way that we can possibly live, if you want to, in a coherent manner to the scientific approach, by still believing in something. So, without further ado, let's get to them. Let's get to the question then, and how these 3 approaches will try to resolve a theological, historical in some ways, question. Who wrote the Torah? The literalist approach will say simply, Moses did it. You have some verses in the Bible that allude to Moses being the author of the Torah. So that's the only conclusion. The Bible is telling us Moses wrote the Torah. I know it's very straightforward, it's very easy, and that's how it sounds very ridiculous. Like, how you accept what is text at face value? But if you are to be a true literalist, you need to accept it. There is no other way around. And because the text tells us Moses wrote the Torah, that's it. There is no discussion. There is no investigation. If someone comes to a literalist, if they existed, and said, oh, let's investigate if Moses wrote the Torah, they look at you and say, are you stupid? Why are you going to waste your time? The Bible is telling us Moses wrote the Torah. What else do you need to know? And that's it. It's over. But the scientific approach doesn't follow a text at face value. It raises hypotheses, possibilities from that hypothesis, and investigates. For instance, the tradition tells us Moses wrote the Torah. Then you have two hypotheses. The tradition is correct, the tradition is wrong. Another question could be, could someone else have written the Torah? And then you have the hypothesis. Yes, no. Could there have been redactors to the Torah? Editors? Again, yes and no. And investigates those possibilities. And this has been done now for centuries. And we have established knowledge to answer this particular question. Because it wasn't atheists who started questioning this. In fact, I believe it was a rabbi. Because if you open the Bible and you go to the 5th book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, to chapter 34, the very last chapter, it's a very short chapter. In the verse 5, it will describe Moses dying as something in the past. And then the text continues for a little bit. So, it's impossible to control the questions. Was that chapter written by Moses? If not, who wrote it? Did this person wrote anything else in the Torah? Was it written around the time of Moses? Why there is nothing specifying it's a different author? So it were scholars, Jewish and Christians, who started looking for answers. They wanted to prove historically, to know historically. And they applied the scientific methodology. And today, the result, and again, I'm being concise here for brevity. I'm trying. So I'll point two very important conclusions that are in relation to this question. The first one is Moses did not write the Torah because we don't even know if Moses existed. And they shouldn't say even we, you say they don't even know if Moses existed. What they know is that the Moses in the Torah is a character. Think Harry Potter is a character in a book. Who controls Harry Potter? The author. Who controls Moses in the Torah? The authors. So historically, what is known today is that there was a tradition of a person named Moses that was very well known among the people of the time. But we don't even know if that person was a real person or if they were made up. The idea goes like this. This movie, whenever I think about this topic, this movie is what I remember. There is a fantasy action movie. I've only watched it once, called Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. So, is Abraham Lincoln a historical figure? Yes. Now, is the Abraham Lincoln in the movie historical? The answer is no. The movie is not describing a factual, historical set of events in the life of Abraham Lincoln. The Abraham Lincoln in the movie is a character. He's doing what the scriptwriters wrote, what the director tells the actor to do. Even if there might be some historical elements, these historical elements are distorted. After all, you have vampires in the picture now. So the Abraham Lincoln in the movie is a character based on a real person. There is nothing historical about him. And that's the best case scenario for Moses. Moses in the Bible is a character based on a real person. Now, is what happened in the Bible what might have happened to that real person? No. The Moses in the Bible is a slave to the authors of the books. And apparently, depending which of the books you pick, in which he appears in the Torah, it's basically a different character. Because we are talking different authors, or groups of authors. So the character changes so profoundly that's not, you can even say, oh, this is the same person. The character is a tool used by the authors for the author's purposes. They are basically using a very respected, well-known figure to shove their ideas in the people. That will be the first point. The second point is that the Torah, and this has been known for well over a century, if not longer, was written and edited by many groups of people. In fact, we can even say, we can't think of someone sitting down and writing the book in one go. Many texts were written, but many others were compiled. So you have a story here, and you look, oh, look at this story. Let's say, as an example, look at this story about the flood. You fit really well here in this part. So let's pick it up and let's put it here. And this is how they do. They have different stories, they have different traditions that they start compiling, and then they start adding stuff. The last group responsible for the editorial process of the Torah, they basically pass an ideological hand throughout the whole thing, and that's what we have today. Let me pull you a very interesting theory about this. This here is a picture, sources of the Torah, as portrayed by the documentary hypothesis and various other hypotheses. And this is here by, let me see, the author is Sultana NSP. It's on Wikimedia Commons. The link is right here. So I'll try and describe it, but if you can take a look at this, you have basically the 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then you have many columns of color with different colors, and they are portraying what this theory presents as different sources of the Torah. For instance, here the priestly source is highlighted in olive yellow. The Jahwist or Javist source would be highlighted in navy blue, the Elohist source in bluish gray, and I believe the redactors in maroon red. This was a very accepted theory up until a few decades ago. Now, as I said, this doesn't even is accepted anymore, because texts come from different sources, so we don't even know. How can I put this in a better way? You might have very old text and newer texts. Texts compiled for written for different reasons, and then they are compiled by this last ideological hand. So they don't come from just 3 or 4 sources, but many, many more. There would be the current position when it comes to the sources of the Torah. So the scientific approach causes a lot of problems for religious people, of course. For those that care about the truth, reality, history, it's fantastic. But for religious people, for religion itself, it causes problem, because if Moses is just a character, a fabrication, what else in the Bible is? You have passages in the New Testament, I'm bringing the Christians into this, that will say Jesus saw Moses, or that Jesus will say something in the lines of the law of Moses. Look, I'm operating within the religious narrative, okay? I'm not saying, oh, Jesus is real, or it's not. What I'm saying is, within the religious narrative, this is what they believe. So I'm playing the game here. But even playing the game, if Moses is not real, did Jesus lie? Well, isn't Jesus God? So shouldn't he have known that Moses didn't exist? And then, what else in the Bible is a lie? This is one of the ways you can prove religion is a social construct for social control. Because by applying the scientific approach, we will see that these texts, they are created with particular objectives, and here's text by text. So they are not a description of reality. They are not even, they love this, to pretend a text that claims to be historical and it's not historical. They pretend that it has a teaching value. You see? This is the game. Because that's the truth about the sacred texts. They are not factual. They don't reflect reality. They reflect the only person that exists within a text, its author. The text will reflect who is writing it. It will reflect the context of the time, because these texts, they are usually reactionary. Something happens, they need to address it, then someone goes and writes a text. And that text was probably told to other people, those people memorize it, and then would tell the population, because they didn't know how to read or write. The text is mostly for preservation. But you see, it's a reaction to something that happens. To what people are doing, are believing, are behaving. Because they want to corral people. Isn't it amusing? And I'm going to the last approach now. But before that, isn't it amusing that they believe, and they will say, no, religion is not for social control. But what do they call people? What are people? Do you know this answer? Especially in the New Testament. We are sheep. Isn't that adorable? But again, that's something for another video. So finally, look, you have the literary approach, super simplistic. And then you have the scientific approach. I only presented 2 of the current conclusions. And if I did a reasonable job, you can see they are very not only complex, but they also put religion in a very complicated place. And then you have the abominable approach. The abominable approach is the religious approach, is religion itself. So how will religion deal with this situation? And here, there are as many possibilities as stars in the sky, as the saying goes. Because it will depend on the group, on the church, on the denomination, on the sect, on the individual. And whatever they choose, they will manipulate and deceive and lie, because they need us to ignore the worst parts of the scientific approach. And look, in a lot of cases, I tend to go to the worst case scenario, which is those religious operatives that know what they are doing. But there are a lot of them that don't even know. So the deceit forgive me, isn't necessarily outwards. Many of these scholars, again, religious people, they can't accept these ultimate conclusions of the scientific approach, the discoveries it makes. So they have to deceive themselves. If you ever hear something on the lines of, it doesn't matter who wrote the Torah, or any other book of the Bible, right? But the example is the Torah. Or, oh well, oral tradition, you know. Or even, look, they were just humans. God is the author of the Torah. These are all attempts to pretend the facts uncovered by the scientific approach, they don't exist. It's an attempt to weaken it. Because let's face it, if you believe in the Bible, if you believe in religion, Moses is the only answer. You don't need anything anymore. It's over. There's no discussion. But they can't accept that. So if they can't accept it's Moses, because the scientific approach basically buried that idea a long time ago, they have to come up with some other way that will put them in between the scientific approach and the literalist approach, so they can pretend it's still the work of God, it's still inspired by God, or something in those lines. It's a very sad reality. These people, they can't accept. They live basically in between what religion tells them and what science. I don't like to use science because science isn't. When you say science, the idea is like a being, right? Oh, look at science. But science is a process. It's a never-ending, ever-changing discovery process. But it's common to say science, so when I'm saying science, this is what I'm meaning. Okay? A process that never ends. It's discovery, always trying to move and to discover objectively reality. So they know that because we live in a world of science. We can't deny many of those things. But at the same time, they come up in a world of religion that does not match. No matter what they say, those two are not, what's the word? They're irreconcilable, despite their attempts to pretend there is no conflict between them. There is a fancy words. I try not to use fancy words, but we could call them epistemologically distinct, let's say. So they are incompatible. But they can't accept that reality. And this is why the abominable approach exists. Because religion operatives, they know they can only push people so far. For instance, if the Catholic Church tomorrow started saying the earth is flat, everyone would look at them and say, what the heck is this? You get the idea. I'm being hyperbolic here. But the idea is they can't create something completely illogical for people to follow. And a lot of the things in the sacred text, even in their own traditions, given the passage of time, became illogical. So they need to do these sort of things to try and conciliate both realities, so they can keep existing and keep deceiving, manipulating, lying, misdirecting people. Usually for their benefits. Before we get to the conclusion of the three approaches, I'd like to make 2 points. The first one is the abominable approach can evolve, and I call that evolution the eldritch abomination. Yes, my naming sense, that's what you get. I keep thinking of the old gods and how terribly they are portrayed, and this for me is the apex of how bad things can get. Because unlike the abominable approach, which at least pretends the sacred text is central, or at least has importance, and that in itself act as a sort of containment, as guardrails that prevent those traveling through it to stray too far. The elders' abomination doesn't have anything of that, anything like that. It doesn't have any sort of containment. It can do anything the person in charge wants. That's why one of the best examples of this is when I hear someone saying something on the lines of, I believe in God, but not the Bible. You see, no longer you have anything containing whoever is in charge. That's why it becomes an eldritch abomination. Imagine this, a building of 100 floors. Every floor is dependent on the next. Every floor is a piece of God, because God is built through time. Religious people get mad. Okay, you can say the understanding of God, if suits your sensibilities better. In any case, people at the top only know, only understand, only conceptualize God because the 100 floors that came before them. What the eldritch abomination does is that they destroy floors 1 to 99, but they like to keep the idea of God still alive. It's like the floors there floating with nothing holding it. That's when the bad things start, because now that person, and is usually one person, but it can be a group, that person shapes God however they want, and without any sort of containment. That's why, even though it's worth nothing, when someone asks, I say, oh, as an advice, run and never look back when you hear someone saying something like that. Because if you choose to follow them, and again, it's alright, what you're doing is you're making yourself submissive. Like, the idea is the person in charge, they are the ones who determine everything you have to do. So you are bowing to their will. This is basically a new religion being born. And if you look at history, they tend to do pretty terrible things, especially in their infancy. So keep that in mind, at least, is what I like to say. The second thing I want to mention before we wrap this up is that there is an alternative, let's say like that, that we could say is proved against the scientific approach. Basically, it's science-safe alternative. So, if you ask, is there a way to believe in something that the scientific approach can deconstruct or destroy? The answer will be yes, there is. And that's encapsulated in the following sentence: I believe there might be something more. But that's it. That's all you can say if you want to be science safe. Right? If you don't care, who cares about this? But if you want to be science safe, you don't want to live in a world without some higher force, and you want to believe in something, this is it. Again, look at the amount of ifs, right? If you want to believe in the world with God, with gods, with Christos, whatever, you're right. I'm just saying, if in a science-filled world you want something, there might be an alternative. This is it. To believe there might be something more. Because the most the scientific approach can do in this case is argue that given the fact that every religion can be deconstructed and every god can be destroyed, the likelihood of something more existing is very low. And that's all. Because as long as there is no elaboration, there is no explanation, it's good. And if someone asks, why is there something more? What does it want us to do? Or how can we meet to interact with it? How can we know? The only answer is, I don't know. I don't know. There might be something more, but I don't know anything about it. Because the moment you start to elaborate on anything related with that something more, then it brings it to a realm where it can analyze and be broken apart. Because this is basically the birth of a new religion. So, once again, as long as it's not described in any way, if you want a science-safe alternative, believing there might be something more is the only way to go. And with this, at least for now, we finally bring the way I see these approaches to religion to a conclusion. And I like to say at least for now, because even though I've thought about these approaches for years, new information might arise and it might spur me to rethink them. However, as far as I can think, that appears to be extremely unlikely, but it's always possible. So I like to keep that in mind. I'm not married to my ideas. I hope I managed to clarify a bit of how these three approaches operate when faced a religious, a theological question. I decided to present them to you, even though I realize it's not the most entertaining, interesting format of a video of an episode, but still, as we're getting closer to the point of what I see the channel being, these initial videos, they will serve as a conceptual groundwork from what I will talk in the future. I will mention a lot this abominable religious approach, for instance, and show how, oh, look here, I'm giving an example now, look here how they are pretending to be literalists, but they are applying science to try and justify something on those lines. So I thought important, and as well to serve as a training exercise for me, because you realize by now things got a little bumpy during the episodes, so we can rely on if you have any further interest, any further questions in it. And as always, right, never take what I say, I should say never take what anyone says, but let's talk about myself in particular, at face value. Check it out for yourselves, and if you disagree, let me know. You might be seeing something I'm not aware of. So it's the interesting thing, because I think I will spell it out. I don't think it's necessary, but I like to think that I follow the scientific approach. But to truly follow it, you need the interaction with other people, because again, I might make mistakes, I might conceptualize something wrong, I might have faulty information, and it's in this interaction that we contribute not only to each other, but to the realm of knowledge itself. At least that's how I see it. So always feel free to point out something, to argue, to call me out, and we'll try to grow that way. That's all for today, everyone. Thank you for watching, well, mostly listening, but I really appreciate it. If you like it, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing. That will help the channel grow. Also consider checking my other social media. Since X is now allowing subscribers to post articles, I'm using that feature basically to write companions to these episodes, and I usually talk about something that I couldn't bring up during the episode, and they basically complement each other. So if you can, please check that out. Once again, thank you all, and I see you next time.